Admiral Lee Daho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the wide window. The Soul's Pride moved slowly through space, patrolling the edge of human territory. Lee had been doing this job for 10 years now. It was usually quiet work. Most days nothing happened at all. Today was different. Captain Park So-min walked up to him holding a data pad in her hands. Her face looked worried. "Admiral, we found something bad," she said. "Very bad." Lee turned to look at her. Park was his best intelligence officer. When she looked worried, it meant real trouble. "What did you find?" Park touched her data pad and showed him pictures on the main screen. Lee saw a planet from space, but something was wrong with it. The planet looked burned. Where cities should be, there was only black ground. "No lights, no life. This is the Keto system," Park said. 3 days ago it had 2 million people living there. Now we can't find anyone alive. Lee felt cold inside his chest. "Who did this?" "The Vorthak Empire and the Nexari Coalition," Park answered. "They're fighting their war again." This planet was caught in the middle. Lee knew about the war. Everyone in the galaxy knew about it. The Vorthak looked like walking crystals that made musical sounds when they talked. The Nexari were made of pure energy that could take any shape they wanted. Both groups were very powerful. Both groups had been fighting each other for 300 years. The worst part was that they didn't care who got hurt. Commander Kim Tae-woo joined them on the bridge. He was in charge of talking to alien species for humanity. Kim looked tired. "I just got a message from the Galactic Council," he said. "Both the Vorthak and Nexari say this area is now a neutral buffer zone. No other species can come here." "What does that mean?" Lee asked. "It means they can destroy any planet they want," Kim said. "They say it's to keep their war from spreading. But really, they just want space to fight without anyone stopping them." Park touched her data pad again. The screen showed a map of space. Red areas marked where the Vorthak controlled territory. Blue areas showed Nexari space. Between them was a gray zone. The gray zone was getting bigger. "Look at this," Park said, pointing to the map. 6 human colonies are right at the edge of the gray zone. If they make it bigger, 30 million humans will be in danger. Lee studied the map. The human colonies were marked with small green dots. They looked very small next to the red and blue areas. Humanity had 12 star systems with colonies. Earth had many trade ships moving between the systems. But compared to the Vorthak and Nexari, humans were like children next to giants. Dr. Han Yu-jin walked onto the bridge. She was the ship's expert on alien species. Han had been studying how aliens fought wars. "Admiral, I need to tell you something important," she said. Lee nodded. "What is it?" "I've been reading reports about how the Vorthak and Nexari fight," Han said. "They don't understand humans at all. They think we're weak because we prefer trade to war. They think we'll run away if they threaten us." "Maybe they're right," Kim said quietly. "We only have patrol ships and defense fleets. They have battle fleets that can destroy planets." Han shook her head. "That's not the point. They don't know anything about human history. They don't know how humans act when someone threatens our families." Just then, a communication signal came in. The bridge crew put it on the main screen. A Vorthak appeared, its crystal body making soft ringing sounds as it talked. "Human vessels," the Vorthak said. Its voice sounded like music, but cold music. "You are ordered to leave this area immediately. This zone belongs to warriors. Weak species have no place here." Commander Kim stepped forward. "We're on a rescue mission. There are survivors on some of these planets." The Vorthak made a harsh sound. "Acceptable casualties of war. Leave now or face destruction." The signal ended. The bridge became very quiet. Lee felt anger growing inside him. "Acceptable casualties," he repeated. 30 million humans are just acceptable casualties to them. Another signal came in. This time it was from a human ship. Captain Choi Minho appeared on the screen. He was the captain of a merchant ship called Busan Runner. The signal was weak and full of static. "Any human ships," Choi said. His voice sounded scared. "We're under attack. We were bringing medical supplies to refugees when Nexari ships found us. They say we're not allowed here. They're charging weapons." The signal cut to static. Park worked quickly at her station. "I'm trying to reach them," she said. But after a few minutes, she stopped. Her face was very pale. "Admiral, the Busan Runner is gone." "No life signs." Lee closed his eyes. Captain Choi had 3 children back on Earth. The communication system activated again. This time a Nexari appeared. It looked like a cloud of bright energy in the shape of a person. When it spoke, its voice buzzed like electricity. "Human Commander," the Nexari said, "your merchant ship entered a war zone. We destroyed it as required by neutral zone protocols. This is your warning. Remove all human presence from this area." "You murdered innocent people," Lee said. The Nexari's energy form flickered. "We removed obstacles to proper warfare. Soft species should understand their place in the galaxy." The signal ended. Lee turned to look at his officers. They were all watching him, waiting to see what he would do. In the distance, Earth Command would probably order them to withdraw. Humanity always tried to avoid fighting with stronger species. But Lee thought about Captain Choi's children. He thought about 30 million humans living in the colonies near the gray zone. He thought about the burned planet where 2 million people used to live. "Park," he said, "send a message to Earth Command. Tell them what happened here." "What should I say?" Park asked. Lee looked at the map again. The red and blue areas seemed to be growing, reaching toward the small green dots that marked human colonies. "Tell them that the Vorthak and Nexari think humans are too weak to matter," Lee said. "Tell them that these aliens believe we'll run away instead of fighting." He paused, thinking about his next words carefully. "And tell them," Lee continued, "that maybe it's time to show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens human families." Dr. Han nodded slowly. "Admiral, I should warn you. These aliens have never studied human military history. They don't know about our wars on Earth. They think all species fight the same way they do." "What way is that?" Lee asked. "Big fleets attacking other big fleets. Direct combat. Rules and honor codes. They've never seen guerrilla warfare or psychological operations. They don't understand how humans fight when we're defending something we love." Lee smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Then maybe it's time they learned. The soul's pride turned toward Earth, carrying news that would change everything. Behind them, the gray zone continued to grow, reaching toward human space like a hungry mouth. But the aliens had made one critical mistake. They thought humans would stay out of their war. They were about to learn how wrong they were. General Yu Hyun-soo sat in the big meeting room on Earth. Around the table were the most important military leaders from all human colonies. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. Everyone was reading Admiral Lee's report about what happened in the neutral zone. General Yu was an old man with gray hair. He had fought in the colony wars 20 years ago. Back then, humans only fought other humans. Now they faced something much bigger. 30 million people, he said finally. That's how many humans live in the colonies near the gray zone. Lieutenant Colonel Bei Ji-woo looked up from her datapad. She was young but already famous for leading Special Forces missions. "General, Earth Command is recommending we withdraw from those colonies. Move everyone to safer systems." "Run away, you mean," said Engineer Song Hae-rin. She was the smartest person in the room when it came to building weapons. "That's what they expect us to do." General Yu stood up and walked to the big window. He could see Earth below, blue and green and beautiful. Somewhere down there, Captain Choi's children were waiting for their father to come home. But their father was dead, killed by aliens who called his death acceptable. "No," General Yu said. "We're not running." Admiral Nam Jin-wook, who commanded all human space forces, leaned forward. "General, we can't fight both the Vorthak and Nexari. They have thousands of warships. We have maybe 200 patrol vessels and defense platforms. Then we don't fight them the way they expect," General Yu said. He turned back to face the table. "Song, what do you have for me?" Engineer Song smiled. It was the kind of smile that meant trouble for someone. "I've been working on projects that Earth Command said were unnecessary for peaceful species. Turns out they're very necessary now." She activated a hologram projector. Pictures appeared in the air above the table. The first picture showed a simple metal rod. "Kinetic accelerators," Song said. "Just chunks of metal moving very fast. No energy signatures for their shields to detect. No electronics for them to hack. Pure physics." The next picture showed a computer virus that looked like growing crystals. "Digital warfare systems," Song continued. "The Vorthak use crystal networks for communication. The Nexari use energy fields. I've designed viruses that can attack both types of systems." Lieutenant Colonel Bei leaned closer to look at the pictures. "These aren't normal weapons." "Exactly," Song said. "Every species in the galaxy fights with energy weapons and shields. They know how to defend against those. But how do you defend against a simple rock moving at half the speed of light?" General Yu nodded. "What else?" Psychological warfare, Song said. The hologram showed images of human soldiers. No alien species has ever used fear and confusion as weapons. They fight for territory and resources. They don't understand fighting for survival. Admiral Nam looked worried. Even with new weapons, we're still badly outnumbered. Numbers don't matter if the enemy doesn't know where you are, Lieutenant Colonel Bay said. General, I recommend we use small unit tactics. Hit-and-run attacks. Make them afraid to leave their bases. General Yu walked back to his chair. Here's what we're going to do. We're not withdrawing from the colonies. Instead, we're expanding into the neutral zone. Everyone in the room stared at him. General, Admiral Nam said carefully, that's declaring war on both the most powerful species in the galaxy. No, General Yu said. We're declaring protection for refugees and civilians. There's a difference. He activated his own hologram system. A map of the galaxy appeared, showing the red Vorthak territory, blue Nexari space, and the growing gray neutral zone. Look at this map, General Yu said. What do you see? Commander Kim Tae-woo, who had arrived from Admiral Lee's ship, spoke up. I see two empires that control most of the galaxy. I see something different, General Yu said. I see two enemies who have been fighting each other for so long that they've forgotten how to fight anyone else. He touched the hologram and new information appeared. Numbers and charts filled the air. The Vorthak fight in formation, big crystal ships in organized lines. They've been using the same tactics for 300 years, General Yu said. The Nexari fight by controlling space with energy fields. Also the same tactics for 3 centuries. They're predictable, Lieutenant Colonel Bay said, understanding. Exactly. They know how to fight each other, but they've never fought humans. They don't know our history. They don't know that humans have fought thousands of different wars with thousands of different tactics. Engineer Song brought up new pictures. These showed human ships, but they looked different from normal patrol vessels. I've been modifying our ships, Song said.
Stealth systems that hide from energy sensors.
Weapons that look like cargo containers. Ships that can split apart into smaller pieces and then rejoin. Admiral Nam studied the pictures. This is brilliant. They'll never see us coming. Better than that, General Yu said. We're going to do something they've never experienced. We're going to turn their own people against them. He changed the hologram to show populations on Vorthak and Nexari worlds. 300 years of war, General Yu said. How do you think their civilians feel about that? How many of them are tired of sending their children to die for nothing? Commander Kim nodded slowly. You want to start revolutions inside their empires. I want to give their people a choice, General Yu said. Keep fighting a pointless war or join a galaxy where different species work together. Lieutenant Colonel Bay looked excited. General, this could work, but we need to move fast. Both empires are probably planning to attack our colonies soon. They are, General Yu said, which is why we're going to attack them first. The room fell silent. Everyone knew that once they started this plan, there would be no going back. Humanity would either win or be destroyed. General Yu looked around the table at each person. I'm not ordering anyone to do this. This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to can transfer to colony defense. No one moved. All right then, General Yu said. Song, how fast can you equip our fleets with the new weapons? 2 weeks for the first wave. A month for everything else. Bay, how many special forces teams can you put together? 50 teams of 10 people each. All volunteers who know they might not come home. Nam, what about our ship commanders? Admiral Nam smiled. General, Admiral Lee has been requesting permission to return to the neutral zone for days. I think he'll be happy to lead the first attack. General Yu activated the communication system. Get me a channel to the Galactic Council. It's time to make an announcement. A few minutes later, representatives from dozens of species appeared on screens around the room. The Vorthak ambassador was there, its crystal body ringing with confidence. The Nexari representative glowed with energy, looking bored. Honored representatives, General Yu said formally. Humanity wishes to make a statement. The Vorthak ambassador made a dismissive sound. If this is about your merchant ship, the matter is closed. Weak species should not interfere in warrior business. General Yu smiled. Actually, this is about the neutral zone. Humanity hereby claims protective jurisdiction over all refugee populations in the contested area. We will defend them. The room exploded with noise. Alien representatives began talking at once. The Vorthak ambassador's crystal body flashed angry red colors. Impossible, the Vorthak said. Humans lack the strength to make such claims. The Nexari representative's energy form grew brighter. This is foolishness. Your species will be eliminated if you interfere. General Yu kept smiling. We understand your positions. You have 72 hours to withdraw your military forces from all civilian areas in the neutral zone. After that, any ship that threatens non-combatants will be considered hostile. The Vorthak ambassador laughed, making sounds like breaking glass. You threaten us? Your entire fleet is smaller than one of our battle groups. You're right, General Yu said. We are smaller, but we're not weaker. He ended the communication. Admiral Nam looked worried. General, they're going to send everything they have against us. Good, General Yu said. Let them come with their big fleets and predictable tactics. Let them underestimate the species that survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. Engineer Song was already working at her computer. General, I'm getting reports from our modified ships. They're ready to deploy. Lieutenant Colonel Bay stood up. My teams are ready too. Where do you want us to start? General Yu looked at the galaxy map one more time. The red and blue areas still looked huge compared to the green human colonies. But now he saw something different. He saw opportunity. We start everywhere at once, he said. Hit their supply lines. Rescue their civilians. Show the galaxy that humans don't fight for conquest. We fight to protect what we love. And if we lose? Commander Kim asked quietly. General Yu thought about Captain Choi's children. He thought about 30 million humans in the threatened colonies. He thought about all the alien civilians who had died in 300 years of pointless war. Then we lose fighting for something that matters, he said. But we're not going to lose. Because they made the same mistake that everyone makes about humans. What mistake? Admiral Nam asked. General Yu's smile became fierce. They thought we would stay out of their war. Admiral Lee Daeho watched the Vorthak battle fleet approach on his ship's sensors. 50 crystal warships moved through space in perfect formation, like they had done for 300 years. Each ship was 3 times bigger than any human vessel. Their weapons could crack planets, but size wasn't everything. Admiral, Captain Park Somin said from her station, the Vorthak are demanding we surrender. They say they'll give us one chance to withdraw before they destroy us. Lee smiled. Around him, the bridge crew of the Soul's Pride worked calmly at their stations. They had trained for this moment for weeks. Tell them we're here to rescue civilians. Nothing more. The Vorthak commander appeared on the main screen. Its crystal body was deep blue, which Lee had learned meant anger. When it spoke, its voice rang like broken bells. Human commander, the Vorthak said, you have entered a combat zone with inferior vessels. Surrender now or be destroyed with the honor due to warriors. I appreciate the offer, Lee said politely, but we'll have to decline. The Vorthak's crystals flashed brighter blue. You cannot fight us with such small ships. We have 50 vessels of the Crystal Fleet. You're absolutely right, Lee agreed. We can't fight you. The Vorthak looked confused. Then why do you not retreat? Lee's smile grew wider. Because we're not going to fight you the way you expect. He made a hand signal to his crew. Suddenly the human fleet scattered in all directions. Some ships dove toward the nearby planet. Others accelerated away at high speed. A few seemed to just disappear entirely. The Vorthak commander stared at the screen. What? What are they doing? This is not proper warfare. Tech specialist Kang Bo-young was already at work in the communication center of the Soul's Pride. Her fingers flew over her keyboard as she launched the first digital attack. The Vorthak used crystal networks that grew throughout their ships like living things. These networks connected all their systems. Kang had spent months learning how crystal networks worked. Now she introduced something new into their systems. A virus that looked like natural crystal growth but changed how the crystals carried information. On the Vorthak flagship, warning sounds began to ring. The commander turned to its officers. Report what is happening. Unknown error in the communication crystals, Commander, one officer replied. The network is growing in unexpected patterns. Fix it immediately. But the officer couldn't fix it. Kang's virus spread through the crystal network like a disease. Soon Vorthak ships couldn't talk to each other. Even worse, they couldn't talk to the different parts of their own ships. Admiral, Captain Park reported, the Vorthak formation is breaking apart. Their ships are acting independently now. Lee nodded. Good. How are Lim's fighters doing? Captain Lim Yunseo was leading a squadron of small, fast ships toward the Nexari fleet on the other side of the system. Unlike the Vorthak, the Nexari didn't use crystal ships. They were energy beings who built vessels out of pure electromagnetic force. Lim's ships were different from normal human fighters. Engineer Song had designed them to be almost invisible. They had no engines running, no electronics active, no energy signatures at all. They drifted through space like pieces of space junk. The Nexari had the best sensors in the galaxy. They could detect the tiniest energy emission from across a star system. But they had never learned to watch for things that made no energy at all. Nexari fleet in sight, Lim reported over a tight beam laser communication. They're maintaining standard energy web formation. Preparing to activate weapons. The Nexari commander was a being of pure electricity shaped like a tall human. It stood on the bridge of its energy ship, confident that its sensors would detect any threat long before it became dangerous. "Commander," one of its officers said, "we detect no human vessels in this area." "They must have fled." "Impossible," the commander replied. "Our intelligence says humans are too stubborn to retreat." Increase sensor sweeps. The Nexari ships expanded their energy field, searching for any sign of human vessels. They found nothing. How could they? Lim's fighters had been drifting through space for hours, powered down and cold as ice. At exactly the right moment, Lim gave the signal. "All fighters activate and engage." Suddenly, the space around the Nexari fleet filled with human ships. They had been there all along, invisible and waiting. Now they came alive with engines and weapons. But these weren't energy weapons that the Nexari could defend against. These were simple kinetic accelerators. Metal rods shot at enormous speed. The Nexari energy shields were designed to stop laser beams and plasma bolts. They couldn't stop chunks of metal moving at half the speed of light. "Impossible," the Nexari commander shouted as its ships took damage. Where did they come from? How did they hide from our sensors? The answer was simple. The Nexari had never fought an enemy that understood stealth technology. For 300 years, every battle had been energy beings versus crystal ships. Both sides always knew exactly where the other was. Humans had learned to hide during their wars on Earth. Now they brought that knowledge to space. Meanwhile, Colonel Oh Sung-min was leading the first human ground forces onto the planet Kepler 442b. This world had been occupied by both Vorthak and Nexari forces for months. The aliens were so busy fighting each other that they barely noticed the human ships landing. "Colonel, Oh's soldiers didn't look like the shiny crystal warriors of the Vorthak, or the glowing energy forms of the Nexari. They looked like ordinary humans in simple uniforms. The aliens thought they would be easy to defeat. They were wrong. Remember," Colonel Oh told his troops over the radio, "we're not here to conquer territory. We're here to rescue civilians and show these aliens something they've never seen before." "What's that, sir?" asked one of his soldiers. "Asymmetric warfare," Oh replied. "They fight like knights in armor. We fight like ghosts." The human soldiers spread out across the planet's surface. They didn't march in formation or attack military bases directly. Instead, they appeared where the aliens least expected them. A Vorthak patrol would be walking down a street when suddenly the buildings around them would explode. But the explosions weren't from advanced weapons. They were from simple bombs made from local materials. Things the aliens hadn't thought to watch for. Nexari energy beings would be securing a communication station when the power grid would suddenly fail, not because of some advanced attack, but because humans had simply cut the power cables. The worst part for the aliens was the psychological warfare. Humans would rescue civilians from both sides, Vorthak crystal children and Nexari energy offspring alike. They would set them free and send messages back to their families. "Your government said these were acceptable casualties," the messages said. "We disagree." Dr. Ryu Chang-ho was studying alien behavior patterns from his station on the Soul's Pride. What he saw amazed him. "Admiral," he reported to Lee, "both alien species are showing signs of severe confusion. They don't understand what we're doing." "Explain," Lee said. "They're used to fighting for territory and resources," Dr. Ryu said. "When they capture a world, they take it and use it. When we capture their soldiers, we heal their wounds and let them go. They can't understand why." On the planet below, a Vorthak officer found itself in human custody. It expected to be tortured or killed. Instead, human medics treated its injuries and gave it food. "Why do you heal us?" the Vorthak asked Colonel O. "We are your enemies." "Are you?" O replied. "Or are you just someone who was told we were enemies by people who wanted to keep fighting a pointless war?" The Vorthak had no answer. Major Shin Ye-jin was leading special operations teams behind enemy lines. Her job was to get into the heart of both alien empires and do something that had never been done before. Tell their people the truth. The war has gone on for 300 years. Shin broadcast from a captured Vorthak communication station. How many of your children have died? How many of your worlds have been burned? And what have you gained? The message reached millions of crystal beings across the Vorthak Empire. Many had been asking the same questions in private. On Nexari worlds, other human teams broadcast similar messages. You fight for honor and territory. But what honor is there in burning refugee worlds? What territory is worth 3 centuries of death? Back in space, the battle was turning into something no one had expected. The Vorthak fleet couldn't coordinate their attacks because their communication systems had been infected by Kang's virus. Individual crystal ships tried to fight human vessels, but the humans wouldn't stand still for a proper battle. Human ships would appear, strike quickly, and vanish again. They targeted supply vessels and communication relays instead of fighting warships directly. Soon the Vorthak fleet was like a blind giant, swinging its fists at enemies it couldn't see. The Nexari fleet was having similar problems. Their energy weapons were useless against simple kinetic projectiles. When they tried to surround human ships with energy fields, the humans would simply ram through them with armored vessels that didn't care about electromagnetic barriers. This is not warfare, the Nexari commander complained to its officers. This is chaos. Perhaps, one of its officers replied quietly. That is the point. Admiral Lee watched the battle reports from both fronts. Human casualties were surprisingly light. Alien casualties were heavy. Fleet Admiral Nam Jin-wook stood in the command center deep inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Around him, dozens of screens showed the largest military fleet ever assembled in galactic history. The Vorthak Empire and Nexari coalition had done something they had never done before. They had joined forces. Admiral, his aide reported, combined enemy fleet strength is over 2,000 vessels. They're moving toward our last known positions. Nam nodded calmly. The alien alliance made sense. After humans had embarrassed both empires in the first battles, their leaders had decided that the human problem needed to be solved quickly and permanently. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had expected this. Sir, another officer called out. The alien fleet has reached the Kepler system. They're finding nothing. Nam smiled. Of course they are. We're not there. The Vorthak and Nexari commanders stood together on the bridge of the massive combined flagship. This cooperation was unthinkable just weeks ago. Crystal beings and energy entities had been killing each other for 3 centuries. Now they worked together, united by their hatred of the small species that had made them look foolish. Where are the humans? The Vorthak commander demanded, its crystal body ringing with frustration. Our sensors show they were here 3 days ago. The Nexari commander's energy form flickered with annoyance. They must be hiding somewhere in this system. Expand the search pattern. But the search found only empty space and abandoned human equipment. It looked like the entire human fleet had simply vanished. What the aliens didn't know was that Dr. Ryu Chang-ho had spent months studying their psychology. He had learned something important. Both species thought about warfare in terms of territory and honor. They expected enemies to defend their captured worlds. Humans had never cared about territory. While the massive alien fleet searched empty star systems, Major Shin Ye-jin was leading special operations teams deep inside both alien homeworlds. Getting there had been surprisingly easy. Both empires had sent almost all their military forces to hunt for the human fleet. Their home systems were nearly defenseless. Shin's team materialized in the central communication hub of the Vorthak capital world. They had traveled there using captured alien transport ships disguised as routine supply runs. Remember, Shin told her team, we're not here to destroy anything. We're here to tell the truth. The Vorthak Communication Center was a beautiful place filled with singing crystals that carried messages across the empire. Shin's team carefully connected their equipment to the crystal network. Within minutes, they had access to every communication system on the planet. Citizens of the Vorthak Empire, Shin broadcast. This is Major Shin Ye-jin of the Human Defense Forces. We are speaking to you from your own capital world. Across the planet, millions of crystal beings stopped what they were doing to listen. No enemy had ever reached their homeworld before. How is this possible? For 300 years, your leaders have told you that this war was necessary. Shin continued. They said you were fighting for honor and survival. But we have something to show you. Shin's team began broadcasting footage they had collected from refugee worlds. Images of burned cities, destroyed families, children of both species crying for their dead parents. This is what 300 years of honor looks like, Shin said. Your children dying for territory that no one really needs. Their children dying for the same reason. When does it end? On another screen, they showed something else. Footage of human medics treating wounded Vorthak and Nexari soldiers with equal care. Images of human ships rescuing alien civilians from war zones. We could have left you to destroy each other, Shin said. But we believe all intelligent life has value, even the lives of those who call us weak. Similar broadcasts were happening on Nexari worlds. Other human teams had infiltrated their energy networks and were showing the same images to energy beings who had never questioned their leaders before. But the most powerful part of the broadcast was what came next. We have been protecting someone, Shin announced. People that your government said were acceptable casualties. The screen showed refugee camps that humans had established in secret. Millions of civilians from both species lived there safely. They included the families of military officers, government officials, and even some of the alien commanders currently hunting for the human fleet. Commander Ziktal of the 3rd Crystal Fleet, Shin said, addressing a specific Vorthak officer, your daughter Kreshan is safe in our care. She sends her love and asks when you're coming home. The message was repeated for dozens of high-ranking aliens. While their leaders had been hunting humans, the humans had been saving their families. The effect was immediate and devastating. In the combined alien fleet, Commander Ziktal received the broadcast and nearly collapsed. His daughter had been reported killed in a Nexari attack 6 months ago. The government had used her death to make him fight harder, but she was alive. The humans had saved her. This is impossible, Ziktal said to his officers. How could they have reached our capital world? How could they have rescued my daughter? One of his younger officers, barely old enough to fight, spoke quietly. Sir, maybe the question is why they would save our families while we're trying to kill them. Similar conversations were happening throughout both fleets. Soldiers who had been told their families were dead discovered that humans had secretly evacuated them to safety. Officers who had been fighting for revenge learned that the enemy had been protecting the very people they wanted to avenge. Fleet Admiral Nam watched the reports from his hidden command center. Human intelligence teams had infiltrated both alien capitals months ago, not to plant bombs or steal secrets, but to document the truth and rescue civilians. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we're detecting massive disruption in both alien fleets. Multiple ships are breaking formation. Some are requesting permission to return home. Good, Nam said. Phase 2 is working. What about Phase 3? Major Shin reports that the civilian broadcasts are reaching maximum effect. Both alien populations are demanding explanations from their governments. Nam nodded. Phase 3 was the most important part of the human strategy. While alien fleets chased ghosts through empty space, humans were doing something that had never been tried before in galactic warfare. They were appealing directly to enemy civilians. Sir, another officer called out, we're getting reports from inside both alien governments. There are arguments happening at the highest levels. Nam wasn't surprised. How could alien leaders explain to their people that the weak humans had infiltrated their most secure worlds? How could they justify continuing a war when the enemy was protecting their own families? On the Vorthak homeworld, the Crystal Council was meeting in emergency session. These ancient beings had ruled the Empire for centuries. They had never faced a crisis like this. How did humans reach our capital world? Demanded the first crystal, its voice ringing like an angry bell. Our defenses are perfect. Clearly they are not, replied the third crystal. The humans have shown capabilities we never suspected. They must be destroyed. The first crystal insisted. We cannot allow weak species to mock our strength. But the fifth crystal, oldest and wisest of them all, spoke slowly. Perhaps we should ask why they came here not to destroy, but to rescue our own people. Similar debates were happening in the Nexari Council of Pure Energy. These beings of living electricity had ruled their coalition for just as long as the Vorthak Crystal Council had ruled their empire. The humans have made us look foolish, one council member sparked with anger. They must be eliminated. But they saved our children, another replied. While we prepared for war, they prepared for mercy. What does that say about us? Back in space, the combined alien fleet was falling apart. When soldiers learned that their families were safe in human protection, many lost the will to fight. When officers discovered that their own governments had lied about family deaths, they began questioning other lies. Commander Zichtal was the first to break. "Fleet Command," he broadcast on an open channel. "This is Commander Zichtal of the 3rd Crystal Fleet. I am withdrawing my ships from this operation." "Impossible," came the reply from Fleet Headquarters. "You cannot withdraw without orders." "My daughter is alive," Zichtal said simply. "The humans saved her when our own forces could not. I will not fight people who protected my child." His ship turned away from the fleet, followed by 2 others, then 10, then 50. On the Nexari side, similar mutinies were beginning. Energy beings who had fought for centuries were refusing to continue a war that made no sense. Admiral Nam received the reports with satisfaction. "How many ships have withdrawn from the alien fleet?" "Over 400, sir. Both sides are experiencing massive desertion." "What about their command structure?" "Breaking down completely. Individual ship commanders are making their own decisions." Nam stood up and walked to the main display. It showed the galaxy with human colonies marked in green, but now there were new colors appearing. Yellow marked ships that had switched sides. Purple marked alien worlds where human broadcasts had sparked civilian protests. The map was changing from blue and red to a rainbow of colors. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving a priority message from the Galactic Council. Both the Vorthak and Nexari governments are requesting immediate." Ambassador Park Subin walked through the halls of the new Galactic Federation building. 6 months ago, this place had been a military fortress on the border between Vorthak and Nexari space. Now it was something that had never existed before, a place where different species came together as equals. The building itself showed how much had changed. Crystal-singing Vorthak architecture blended with flowing Nexari energy designs and practical human engineering. Representatives from dozens of species worked side by side in the same rooms where war plans had once been made. "Ambassador," her aide called out, "the morning session is ready to begin." Park nodded and entered the main assembly hall. The sight still amazed her. Former Vorthak commanders sat next to Nexari officers they had been trying to kill just months ago. Commanders from both sides now worked together to protect trade routes and refugee settlements. At the center of the hall stood Admiral Ko Min-jun, who had been chosen to lead the new Joint Defense Force. Ko was young for such an important job, but he had earned respect from all species during the final battles of the war. "Ladies, gentlemen, crystal beings, and energy entities," Ko began the meeting. "Today we discuss the protection of the Kepler Trade Corridor." The Kepler Corridor had been a battlefield just months ago. Now it was becoming one of the busiest trade routes in the galaxy. Ships from dozens of species carried goods and passengers along paths that had once been marked by destroyed worlds. Former Commander Zichtal of the Vorthak raised his crystal hand. His daughter Cressan sat beside him. She had chosen to work as a translator for the new Federation. "Admiral Ko," Zichtal said, "my patrol ships report no hostile activity in Sector 7. All refugee settlements are secure." A Nexari officer named Flexara flickered with agreement. "Energy Patrol confirms the same for Sectors 8 and 9. Trade volume has increased 40% since last month." Park smiled as she listened. These beings had been trying to destroy each other for 3 centuries. Now they competed to see who could protect civilians more effectively. The transformation hadn't been easy. Both the Vorthak Empire and Nexari coalition had collapsed when their own people stopped supporting the war. Some die-hard military leaders on both sides had tried to continue fighting, but their soldiers had refused to follow orders. "The old governments fell apart," Admiral Ko had explained to the Galactic Council. "Not because we destroyed them, but because their own people chose something better. Now, instead of 2 massive empires ruling through fear, the galaxy had dozens of smaller governments that represented their people's actual wishes. The Galactic Federation helped coordinate between them, but each world made its own choices about how to live." Philosopher Lee Jae-hyun had written the founding documents of the new Federation. His words were carved in crystal, energy, and metal on the walls of every government building. Strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to protect. True victory is not the defeat of enemies, but the creation of friends. These ideas were spreading throughout the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Species that had been ignored for centuries were suddenly sending representatives to Federation meetings. Worlds that had been forced to choose sides in the old war were now free to make their own alliances. Ambassador Park called out a delegate from the Zephyrian Republic. Our mining colonies would like to request Federation protection. We've heard that humans can defend worlds without conquering them. Park nodded. We'll send patrol ships and engineering teams. But remember, Federation protection means Federation principles. No slavery, no discrimination, and all disputes resolved through discussion rather than force. We understand and agree, the Zephyrian replied. This was happening across the galaxy. Species that had lived under Vorthak or Nexari rule for centuries were discovering they could govern themselves. The Federation helped with defense and trade, but each world remained independent. Dr. Han Yujin, now the Federation's chief xenobiologist, was studying how different species adapted to peace after so many years of war. Her research station was on the former battlefield of Kepler 442b, where human soldiers had first demonstrated their unusual approach to warfare. The psychological changes are remarkable, Dr. Han explained to a group of visiting scholars. Both Vorthak and Nexari individuals show decreased stress hormones and increased social cooperation. When they're not constantly preparing for war, they're free to develop other aspects of their cultures. She showed them through the research station, which was staffed by scientists from all three species. Former enemies now work together to study everything from crystal growth patterns to energy field dynamics. Before the war ended, Dr. Han continued, Vorthak society was completely focused on military honor. Nexari culture emphasized energy manipulation for combat. Now they're exploring art, music, philosophy, and science. In the station's main lab, a young Vorthak scientist named Jelmar was working with a Nexari researcher called Brightsong to develop new communication technologies. Their project would help species with very different ways of thinking understand each other better. Dr. Han, Jelmar said, its crystal body chiming with excitement. We've made a breakthrough in cross-species translation. The humans taught us that understanding different perspectives makes everyone stronger. Brightsong flickered in agreement. When we only fought each other, we never learned how beautifully different our thoughts could be. This was the real victory of the human intervention. Not just ending a war, but showing the galaxy that diversity made civilization stronger, rather than weaker. Admiral Lee Dae-ho, now in his 70s, stood at the memorial ceremony in Liberation Space. This area had once been called the Neutral Zone, where both alien empires had destroyed whatever they chose. Now it was a place of remembrance and hope. The memorial itself was a work of art created by all three species working together. Vorthak crystals sang softly in harmonies that represented the voices of the dead. Nexari energy fields created gentle light patterns that told the story of peace replacing war. Human engineers had designed the structure to last for thousands of years. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had come for the ceremony. Many were species that had been considered minor during the old Empire days. Now they stood as equals with everyone else. Today we remember not just those who died in 3 centuries of pointless war, Admiral Lee said to the gathering, but also those who chose to stop fighting when they realized there was a better way. Former Commander Ziktal stepped forward. His daughter Crescian walked beside him, no longer a rescued refugee but a respected diplomat in her own right. Humans taught us something we had forgotten, Ziktal said, his crystal voice ringing clearly across the memorial. Strength is not measured by how much you can destroy but by how much you can protect and build. Former Nexari Energy Admiral Fluxmanar flickered into visibility. We fought for honor and territory for 300 years, but humans showed us that the greatest honor comes from creating peace rather than winning wars. The ceremony concluded with something that had never happened before in galactic history. Children from all three species played together in the gardens around the memorial. Young Vorthak crystals chimed musically while Nexari energy children glowed in playful patterns. Human children laughed and ran between them all. That's the future, Admiral Lee said quietly to Ambassador Park, who had come to stand beside him. Not another empire ruling through fear, but all of us working together. Park nodded. The Federation Council voted yesterday to begin the Deep Space Exploration Project. Mixed crews from all member species will explore beyond the galaxy's edge. Looking for new worlds to conquer? Lee asked with a slight smile. Park smiled back. looking for new friends to make. As the sun set over Liberation Space, Admiral Lee thought about how it all began. Captain Choi Minho's ship had been destroyed by aliens who called his death acceptable casualties. That single act of callous violence had started a chain of events that transformed the entire galaxy. They thought humans would stay out of their war, Lee said to himself, repeating the words that had become famous throughout the Federation. They learned that humans don't fight to prove we're strong. We fight to protect what we love. The memorial crystals chimed softly in the evening air, their song carrying across Liberation Space and out to the stars. It was a song of remembrance for the dead, but also of hope for the living. Above them, the lights of the space station showed ships from dozens of worlds docking together peacefully. Trade vessels, exploration ships, and patrol craft all shared the same facilities. Former enemies now worked side by side to protect the peace they had built together. The war that had lasted 3 centuries was over. But more importantly, the civilization that would last for millennia was just beginning. In schools across the galaxy, children learned the lessons of the human war, not as a story of military victory, but as proof that understanding and compassion could triumph over hatred and fear. They learned that the greatest warriors were often those who found ways to avoid fighting. And they learned that sometimes the best way to win a war was to convince everyone involved that peace was a better choice. The galaxy was no longer divided between the strong and the weak, the conquerors and the conquered. It was united by the